After nearly 67 years, a World War II Army private has made it to his family.
On October 9th, 1944, 19-year-old Donald Owens was killed inside his tank by German forces in France.
But his body was never found until just a couple of years ago. This morning, his ashes were presented to his nearest living relative who lives here in Mobile.
Fox 10 News reporter John Rogers joins us in the studio with more on this. John.
Bob, Lenise, Lois Owens is the widow of Donald's brother, John. The two men proudly served their country during World War II, but only John came back. Since Donald's body was never found, the family was left in the dark for decades without closure. And sadly, Donald's brother John died in 2004 without ever having known what happened to his little brother. As Lois Owens fumbles through stacks of paperwork and photos, her brother-in-law, Donald, stares back at her, still in his youth, still a teenager. But she says he sacrificed the joys of youth and left his hometown of Cleveland when the world was thrust into war.
Proms and graduation and all the things that goes on with the senior. He missed all that. He gave that up to go and serve his country.
18-year-old Donald Owens left school early to become an Army private. He was a gunner on a tank as it made its way through France.
And the boys couldn't get through the forest. It was just too thick. And the tanks were cutting a trail for them. And their tank was the very first in line. This is from Donald. He was in France in a foxhole.
On August 9th, 1944, Donald wrote his family a letter.
I was sitting in my foxhole today and I was thinking quite a lot of you.
He recently celebrated his birthday.
Time is scarce, so I'd better close for now.
It was the last letter he ever wrote.
Lots of love, Don.
Exactly 2 months later, his tank was attacked by German troops.
They caught the tank on fire and it burned for 24 hours.
His brother, Lois's husband John, spent the rest of his life wondering if his brother would ever come home.
They just put him down as missing in action. None of them knew.
But Owen says a couple of years after her husband died, a tornado blew through a wooded area in France. A man came out and found this.
And they found Donald's dog tags.
And soon they found some of his bones.
I thought, who are they trying to kid? 67 years ago? That's impossible. But it wasn't.
And now Donald is back home with his family. His remains are inside of a beautiful urn set right next to a picture of his brother.
So now we have come to the closure of this wonderful miracle.
And his high school in Cleveland hasn't forgotten him. After his remains were identified, the school honored him with his well-deserved high school diploma. And later this summer, Donald would get the burial he deserves. On August 23rd at 9 a.m., a full military funeral will be held for Donald at Arlington National Cemetery.